Start in 30 seconds.
Thank you, Chair.
30-second warning.
Yes, gotcha. I know Darren won't be here at all today.
Okay.
Josh won't be here at all. April won't be here for 2:30, but she'll be here at 3.
Okay. Merced County Association of Governments to order. Joy?
Director Espinoza.
Present.
Director Hogue. Director Yanez. Director Moran.
Present.
Director McDaniel. Director Nagy.
Here.
Director Nelson.
Here.
Director Pereira. Director Pedroso. Chair Serrato.
Here.
Director Silvera. Thank you.
Thank you, Joy. On item 2, which is public comment, anyone from the public here wish to speak and be heard on the topic of regional housing and homelessness at this time? Okay, seeing none. Welcome in particular to our 3 new members, Director Nelson, Moran, and Yanez. Welcome. This is our quarterly update from Mr. Checkley, who's the county's Director of Housing and Homelessness, on regional housing and homelessness efforts. Turn it over to Mr. Checkley. John.
There we go. Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the MCAG board. My name is John Checkley. As introduced, Deputy Director for the Human Service Agency Homeless Housing Service Branch. We've been providing these updates quarterly since September of 2020. Obviously, homelessness is a regional issue. Housing is a regional issue, and this seems the best forum for us to provide these updates. So I know you have hard copies of this update. I'll try to get through it rather quickly. Today we're going to be focused on a few updates from prior presentations, and then talk a little bit about the permanent local housing allocation. Are we going to have the PowerPoint up? This PowerPoint's got some notes on it as well, and I've talked to my MCAG colleagues. I'll send that out to you, so I'll brief some of the details on this that won't be on the slides, but you will all have those in electronic copy shortly. Thank you. Just an overview, the project updates as stated. We'll look at the permanent local housing allocation. I know it's new for a lot of us. It's the one recurring revenue source for local jurisdictions for housing and homelessness. And then we'll go through the jurisdictional PLHA plans. This year was a really important year. This funding's been available for approximately 3 years, but this year was really telling, because if we did not apply as a jurisdiction for our 2019 allocation, that allocation would have gone back to the states. And then most importantly for this body of policymakers is the opportunities that may be in front of us based on not only this permanent local housing allocation, but other funding sources that are out there. So the homeless updates, there was a 100-day challenge. The governor office has been conducting challenges here over the course of the last several years. We participated in 2. One was focused on the city of Los Baños to address encampments, where we were able to house 20. Our most recent challenge, and we took this challenge is because it has a county-wide impact, was on homeless families and trying to house 100 children and youth in 100 days. I'm happy to report through the 100-day challenge, we were able to house 116 children and youth from a total of 48 families. So that 116 number is not encompassing of the heads of those families as well. And I really want to spotlight, in regards to today's update, 22 of those children, so the difference between achieving the goal and not, were housed from the composition of 11 families at Childs and B Retreat Affordable Housing Complex. So without that opportunity, without that opening of an affordable housing development, we would have fallen short of our challenge. So it just makes a huge impact, especially in the homeless population. These were families living in motels primarily. That's funded through our housing support or CalWorks program. So to be able to streamline those folks into an affordable housing complex was a huge achievement for us. And then lastly, the second update, and something you all may have seen, the governor did put a pause on the homeless housing assistance and prevention round 3 funding. He's since released that funding, which is directed towards the continuum of cares throughout the state of California, the 58 counties, and the 13 largest cities. That was $1 billion for last year's budget. So he did finally release that. We have received our award letter. It did somewhat jeopardize programs that are ongoing right now. Again, as we talk about the permanent local housing allocation, the reason I wanted to focus on this, a lot of our funding is one-time or grant funding. So the permanent local housing allocation, which we'll talk about shortly, is that one-time funding or that recurring funding that we do receive. In order to receive that money, we had to submit a commitment letter, and on the call with the governor, he basically stated he lives in the aggregate, which is true. He represents the entire state. So living in the aggregate, when he compiled all of those responses, the overall reduction in unsheltered homelessness was going to be 2%. And he thought this would be a good time to put a pause on that, pull everyone in and say, hey, look, we need to be a lot more ambitious. We need to hold jurisdictions accountable to how they're using this money. So I think his the pause was from a good spot, and he's since released that money. So we're appreciative of that. And lastly, and when we electronically send out, there was a document we signed to implement some best practices. And the reason I wanted to highlight that today, it includes leveraging funds. And we'll see shortly that some jurisdictions have allocated funds for services, as well as establishing cross-system partnerships to be more effective in the homeless response system. That includes jails, sheriff departments, local law enforcement, institutions of higher education. So again, just wanted to spotlight a couple of recent projects that have relevance to the permanent local housing allocation. There we are. So just want to give a really brief recap here. The permanent local housing allocation enacted in 2017 through SB 2 creates 2 pots of funding. The funding is derived from a $75 real estate transaction fee on all transactions short of sales. So it's a moving target. It just depends on how many of those transactions are conducted. That money is then compiled and then distributed out to the jurisdictions who have compliant housing elements. There's 2 pots of that funding. One is a formulaic distribution that everyone is eligible for, that meets the minimum requirements, and then there's a non-entitlement competitive allocation that's available. That non-entitlement allocation, it's not easy to get, but you're competing against like-sized jurisdictions. So a lot of times we find that we're competing against larger jurisdictions which have more resources. In this case, it's really a competitive pot of money that we're competing with like-sized jurisdictions. Excuse me, the funding for these are housing-related projects. And I won't read all of these. It's really intended to increase the housing supplies for households at 60% of the area median income. There's some actual assistance you can provide to the folks who are at risk or literally homeless, and then just to facilitate housing development overall. There's 10 actual uses for the formulaic distribution and 2 for the non-entitlement competitive allocation, again, focused on development or rehabilitation of affordable housing developments that serve folks who are at 60% of the area median income. And then that second one, the competitive pot, can be used to provide services to folks who are either at risk or experiencing homelessness. And then as we go through the jurisdiction submissions, we'll see what folks have applied for. So the city of Atwater has a really creative submission. And I have the unenviable task here as a county employee to come up and kind of brief everyone from your jurisdictions on what you all did with the funding. So a lot of you know better than I do, but I appreciate all your staff members helping me compile this information to present it in aggregate to you all. So they actually are doing 3 different things with their funding, including 0 interest deferred payment loans for ADUs. financing assistance to income-eligible families at risk of homelessness with rental and mortgage and utility expenses, and then gap funding for the development, pre-development acquisition of family and residential work housing and rental housing. So a really thoughtful plan with a couple different activities to really help address affordability. The City of Gustine also used their funding for supporting the development of affordable multi-housing projects. They also partnered with Self-Help Enterprises, who's a known entity in our community, to submit their application before the deadline. They are prioritizing funding for projects to provide permanent supportive housing units and units at or below 30% of the area median income. So again, City of Gustine also applied. City of Livingston, this theme here on the development of affordable housing, right? Again, targeting 30 to 50% of the area median income with the subject to a 55-year affordability covenant, as all affordable housing is. And then they sent over as well, this is true for everyone here, that 5% of that allocation can cover administrative costs in order to operate the programs. And then actually staff and overhead costs directly related are considered activity costs as well. So you can use that allocation for carrying out the activities that you're submitting. City of Los Baños actually sent over a picture, which I appreciate, to give us an idea of what they're talking about here. Their council approved on 10/19 for the renovation of a hotel or motel for the purpose of serving as a transitional housing for those at risk or experiencing homelessness. We see this model's been used since the COVID pandemic. There was a project, Room Key, that provided temporary housing. The state then started Project Home Key with about $1.4 billion in funding. Round 3 of that is coming up shortly. So this will require the purchase of a hotel site, complete the necessary renovations to convert that hotel site into single-room occupancy units, and then partner with local service providers to administer and manage the daily operations of the funding. So this is actually, again, another really exciting proposal, and will likely have to leverage other funding sources in order for it to happen. But it would convert existing motel into single-room occupancy. And that's an artist rendition of what that could look like. There's actually 2 other projects in the city of Merced that should open in March that used Home Key funding to do one project to do specifically just this, to take a 96-unit motel and convert it into single-room permanent homeless housing, which is great. Every year we'll do our point-in-time count. This is the only way to get those folks off the point-in-time count, is to permanently house them. We've done a really good job of shifting them from unsheltered into shelter, but this is actually the way we can really demonstrate the success of the strategy we've implemented to get folks housed. City of Merced also sent over a fairly nice looking slide here with their 5-year plan. They've broken it up into several different years, and they've already, through their RFP process, committed a lot of this funding, right, again, focused on affordable rental housing, helping to address RENA allocations, as well as just to create affordable housing for our populations here. You see the 55-year affordability covenant that is associated with affordable housing. And then a couple projects, and I know Ms. Dietz was here last quarter to talk about the projects that the City of Merced is involved in. City of Merced, our only entitlement jurisdiction, clearly they've got additional resources through CDBG, the Community Development Block Grant, and the Home Grant, where they annually receive funding. So it's nice to see them, again, leveraging not only that funding, but also the permanent local housing allocation for projects, county projects such as Mercy Village, which will be 66 units, 65 units with a manager unit of permanent supportive housing in partnership with the county and the Housing Authority. For project-based vouchers to make sure there's operational funding for those projects. And then in years to come here, 22, 23, they're committing approximately $1.6 million to Link Housing. They also have 54 bedroom units. They're all going to be 1-bedroom units. At least 50% from our conversation with them for folks who are experiencing homelessness, depending on what kind of operating subsidy, they're agreeable to go to 100%. And I think it's important with all of these homeless housing projects, we realize there's got to be a really strong supportive service plan. So HomeKey requires that as part of your submission, that you've identified someone who's going to be providing those supportive services. Link Housing actually provides this as well, and we at the county have had initial talks with them on how we could potentially help connect them to resources for the ongoing operation, and then who locally would provide those services. Housing first is the idea that, you know, no matter what someone's done in the past, or where they're at on some spectrum of housing readiness, we still have an obligation to house them. That sounds beautiful in theory. In practice, there has to be really strong supportive services to make sure people retain their housing. The County of Merced has focused on assisting persons who are experiencing or at risk of homelessness. So of those 10, you know, how do we develop more housing? We've seen a few examples here, you know, funding for ADUs and workforce housing. The county's really focused on folks who are experiencing homelessness, and they've done that through the Navigation Center that's located here in the city of Merced. Our 5-year PLHA plan adopted by the Board of Supervisors is to help offset the operational expense of that building. Again, I know I hear it time and time again, and I know Supervisor Silvera is, you know, really good about reminding me, like, the capital money is usually there. I think it's important that we're transparent with everyone that that's true. How do we operationalize these things in the long term so they have the greatest impact? And then lastly, I really want to focus on the county has been a recipient of $2 million of the competitive award. So in round 1 and round 2, we applied for $1 million of emergency shelter and $1 million of rapid rehousing. The thing with the competitive award, it has to be utilized in your jurisdiction. So we took that award, and we have to utilize it in the unincorporated area. So our strategy for this is to use what we call bridge homes. They're basically mini navigation centers. We'll go into a jurisdiction, rent a home, and then put the same services we would at a navigation center. There's someone who lives there on site to make sure folks are making meaningful progress towards permanent housing, you know, making sure they're not disruptive. There are rules. These are in our neighborhoods. So we're looking to expand our distributive housing, where we have 4 homes in the city of Merced and 1 in the city of Los Banos. We had homes in Livingston as well, and Atwater. Those homes have since shut down, but we'll be expanding now into Santa Nella, Delhi, Winton, and Planada. And then the last award was for $1 million of rapid rehousing. So that's really rental assistance. How do we identify permanent housing solutions for them, help them move into those units, pay their rent until they become either self-sufficient or connected with a different operating subsidy. This would be very difficult. A competitive award would be very difficult for the majority of the jurisdictions in this room right now. The threshold requirements are that you've administered social service programs. So on the opportunity page, we can go and talk about partnerships. One way you could do this is to have a binding agreement. So there could be 2 jurisdictions that pair up in order to apply for a project that maybe isn't in the county but in one of your jurisdictions. And of course, we want to be as competitive as possible for this. There'll be another round of this competitive allocation in August, so we do have some time. So this is the most exciting part of putting a presentation together. I always like to end with opportunities, and sometimes I have to sit there for a really long time to figure out what those are. And in this case, I actually was getting rid of other opportunities that they sounded great at my first thought, but this morning I'm like, there's so much. And I appreciate the MCAG staff taking the updated slides so late. Really, like, the next steps on the permanent local housing allocation plans, and we've seen this, the county's done this, the city of Merced has done this. I'm sure other jurisdictions have, I know other jurisdictions have done this. You know, now that we've submitted plans to the state, and most importantly too, these plans can be adjusted. So we just had an election, right? Strategies might change. Anything that changes your plan more than 10% requires another public hearing and another submission to the state. But I think it's important to say that you all have some flexibility in what strategies you look to implement. based on what we've seen so far from the plans that have been submitted, a really good strategy may be just to identify surplus lands. The city of Merced had identified surplus lands, sent out an RFP, and even the link housing proposal that you saw there, that came through that RFP. In my mind, it was like, great, what did that do to the city? They had land that was undeveloped that a few times a year, neighbors called up and said, hey, you need to mow the lawn, and they went in and mowed it. Right? It's an asset on your books that's not really doing much. In their case, their strategy was, let's get these assets out there. Let's identify folks that have a plan, and let's use them for affordable housing. So just again, a potential opportunity to get any surplus land out there and into circulation. Lastly, after identifying this, would be the releasing the request for proposals or qualifications to develop that land further. Again, just a couple suggestions that have been implemented here, and I think as a team we could come together and figure out how to do that if that was the desire of the jurisdiction. I mentioned earlier the governor's, the state of California, really the 7 best practices, as they call them. A lot of those had to do with partnerships with your your housing authority, with your coordinated entry system, through your continuum of care, with law enforcement, with other jurisdictions. Just identifying further opportunities for jurisdictions with limited capacity to administer PLHA funding. Unfortunately, the city of Dos Palos wasn't able to submit an application, and that's not an indictment on anything other than we're all super busy. I don't think anyone would argue with that, and limited capacity. There are opportunities now to partner with them, either through providing them what you all have done, or partnering with them through a binding agreement to redirect that. They could redirect those funds to Los Banos, for example, where you would be able to utilize those funds in your jurisdiction. So again, just an opportunity for the future. Application strategies for non-entitlement competitive portion. I spoke about that a little bit earlier. It would be very difficult for the majority of our jurisdictions to really compete meaningfully for that based on those threshold requirements, but partnering with somebody like the County of Merced or the City of Merced, who administers some of these programs, or actually the City of Atwater shortly, who also applied to administer a rental assistance program. That's what the state wants to see. You have some experience administering service programs. There's also $5 million you can apply for if there were an affordable housing complex. So again, just strategizing together and collectively. I won't mention the best practices again. Those are something I think we all could take a look at and figure out which ones make sense for us, right? We just don't do things to do things. I know when they sent back and like, hey, we need more meaningful, I directed my staff, we're not just gonna make up numbers to make the governor happy. We're gonna be thoughtful in approach, and if it's 10%, it's 10%. We don't do anything here. We do our best. That's all we can ever ask for. So, leveraging PLH funding with others. We talked about that already. Los Banos has provided direction. The council has provided direction on what they want to see. There's just not enough money to do that exclusively. But with a home key application, with other affordable housing applications for acquisitions or rehabilitation, I'm confident we could make that happen. And then lastly, and I would say potentially most importantly, we can get all the way through all of these other best practices. If we don't identify ongoing operation supports, especially for housing, targeting individuals who are experiencing homelessness, they don't really pencil out. So we submit an application, and most of these applications now require, what's your operating subsidy? What's your commitment? And we don't have a lot of that. Some examples are project-based vouchers with the Housing Authority. That one comes up a lot. I saw this morning there was another grant that was released that could help out and establish what's called a capital operating subsidy reserve. So that way it goes to a developer, a property manager who, you can't charge someone who doesn't have income rent, but you can establish a $1 million, $2 million operating subsidy reserve to make sure the lights stay on, the property managers are there. All of these things take time and they take coordination. So it was exciting to put this together because it really is the next step in our evolution. For 4 or 5 years, if not longer, we've all been working on housing and homelessness, and it's been a topic. Resources are likely to become less available. The state is looking at a $25 billion budget deficit at this point. So we're going to have to get creative, but we're all capable of doing that. So that concludes the update. I do want to thank all the jurisdictions. I know probably get a little tired of, we brought up PLHA a lot in the middle of COVID and in the middle of, hey, this is a resource for our community, but I really want to thank you because primarily it makes my job easier if there's more housing, but also because it's a great resource for our community. And I want to commend all of you for taking the time to put the application in and getting some creative applications in there. So pending any questions, Mr. Chair, I didn't bring a watch,
All right.
so I don't know where I'm at.
Oh, you know, you're just in time. We got a couple minutes before our before the regular meeting. Any questions for Deputy Director Checkley? Seeing none. Go ahead, Scott.
Yeah.
Director Silvera.
John, you mentioned like the portions that are entitlement and then the portions that are non-entitlement. What's the definition? What makes you an entitlement jurisdiction?
It's a city with a population over 50,000 and a county with a population over 200,000. So it's
Okay.
based on population.
And so as the city in our jurisdiction is approaching, in my district, it's approaching that number, like how soon does that take place? Is it something like, man, you hit 50,000, you send them a letter, now you become entitlement? Like, do you know how that works?
I do not, but I can definitely get back and send that out to the MCAG team and have them distribute it.
Perfect, I appreciate it.
All right. Anyone else for John? All right, sir. Thank you, as always, for your presentation, for your work. John, really, you guys do tremendous work. 19% drop in unsheltered at the last point in time count. We'll see on January 26th, or sometime after January 26th, what the results of that count is. But you guys have really been doing incredible work. So thank you, as always.
Great team, thank you.
Yep. All right, we'll take about a 2-minute recess, and then we'll begin the 3 o'clock regular meeting. Meeting of the Merced County Association of Governments. We'll call the meeting to order at this time and turn it over to Joy for roll call.
Director Espinoza. Director Hoag.
Here.
Director Yanez.
Here.
Director Moran.
Present.
Director McDaniel. Director Nagy.
Here.
Director Nelson.
Here.
Director Pereira.
Here.
Director Pedroso.
He's here, but he just stepped off for a second. He should be right back.
Chair Serrato.
Here.
Director Silvera.
Okay.
And we do have a quorum.
Thank you, Joy. I'll turn it over to you for item 4B, which is the invocation.
If you'd all like to stand, please. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you for this opportunity to come together with our elected officials, our leaders, our management, and our community to work together on issues that involve our community. And we just thank you and we ask for your wisdom and for your blessing upon this meeting. In the name of Jesus, amen.
Thank you, Joy. Then I would ask maybe one of our new members if they'd like to lead us in the pledge.
Oh, yeah. Son of a gun.
Director Yanez, you want to do it?
I'll take it.
Okay.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We've never done that before.
All right, takes us to item 5, which is approval of the agenda. Any discussion or a motion in regards to that?
Second.
Okay, there was a motion from Director Espinoza, second from Director Nagy. Any opposition? Okay, seeing none, motion passes unanimously. On to item 6, which is public comment. Anyone from the public wish to address the board at this time? Okay, seeing none, takes us to item 7, which is the Citizens Advisory Committee report. I see Mr. Delgadillo here. I'm not sure if it's his time to do it or not. It looks like it is. All right, sir, pleasure as always. Tell us everything we're doing wrong.
Oh, everything.
That's true.
Good afternoon to you, all of you. Good afternoon.
Okay.
I am here to present to you a brief, and a very brief, report from our MCAG CAC meeting December 2nd. Maggie Brown has volunteered to become the primary MCAG CAC member to report the results of our MCAG CAC monthly meetings to you. And the members concurred. We lost a good chairperson, Shane Smith. The good news is that the city of Merced has gained a good city council member, Shane. We, the city planning commissioners, will try our best to keep him and the city government busy. Okay? Don't smile, I'm serious. The good news is Rene Gutierrez, he was elected to replace Shane. Ursula Stock is the new vice chair. Paul Ward missed a couple of the San Joaquin Valley Air Pollution Control District's advisory committee meetings. He had hip surgery. He sounds good, but for the moment he cannot drive. I believe he will return to active duty very soon. Unfortunately, he missed a perfect attendance with the MCAG CAC and the Air Quality CAC meetings because of his surgery. Stacy Guzman's staff represented to us Citizens Advisory Committee the following: action, information, and discussion items. 2 action items. Merced County Association of Government staff, Meg Prince, reported the following. Recommend the governing board approve the Regional Early Action Planning Grant Program 2.0 full application. Recommend authorization agreement to prepare 6-cycle multi-jurisdictional housing element. Both pass 13-0 and 3 absent excuse. Transit Power Joint Power Authorities of Merced County, Cristina Chavez, reported the following. Recommend authorization to enter into a contract for engineering services for bus fleet electrification infrastructure in the amount of $165,681.42 with Sanctac Consulting Services. It passed 12-0 and 3 absent and 1 abstain. 3 discussion items. MCAG CAC. Elizabeth Forte explained the Transportation Planning and Measure V monthly update. Meg Prince explained the Regional Housing Planning update. TJPA for Merced County, Meg Prince explained the Regional Housing Planning update. Other discussion items. Jose Perez explained the Transit Joint Powers Authority for Merced County monthly update. An hour ago, some of you attended the celebration of the newly remodeled Transit Administration's office. TJPA is monitoring the building for the order of 5 new Flyer battery electric buses. TJPA is expected to take receipt of 7 cutaways by the end of the year. Updates on the order of the additional 5 cutaways is pending due to industry shortages. Electric bus infrastructure. Staff has concluded the process of issuing a request for qualifications for the design and engineering of the operations and maintenance facilities electrification. Very important. Please hold your questions. Your professional staff behind me will answer them during their presentation. My last comment for today, Joy Young. You have been an outstanding asset for me. Your outstanding support and caring will not be forgotten. I wish you the best of you turn into a new life, a young lady in retirement. Make the best of it. Thank you very much. And Merry Christmas to all of you.
Okay. Before Jose steps down, any questions? Now's the time. All right, we'll give you away. All right, thank you, Jose. Always an honor. Next takes us to item 8, which is a Caltrans report. Another favorite of this board, Mr. Marlin.
All right. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, Madam Director, board members. Thank you for the time. Just want to give a brief Caltrans update. Don't have too much that I want to share with the board today, but I do want to first mention, first and foremost, this month is our annual Move Over campaign kickoff. This is our highway safety campaign, which reminds motorists to move over, slow down, and pay attention when driving in a work zone. Tragically, the timing of this year's outreach effort coincides with the deaths of 2 Caltrans employees and 2 contractors, which happened in the last several months due to errant drivers. The nature of the critical work Caltrans maintenance and construction teams and our contractors perform in the field can be incredibly dangerous. This law requires that drivers move over to another lane or slow down when they see flashing amber lights from Caltrans equipment or emergency vehicles. Our goal is that these public awareness efforts will create a safer experience for everyone working and traveling in work zones across the state. So you guys will see these messages for move over on our changeable message signs all across the county and across the district, across the state actually. It's a statewide campaign. And we will have this on our social media. Just in case you guys don't know, we do have a District 10 Caltrans Instagram page now, so you guys can check that out as well. We will have this on our website additionally. And if you guys would like more information, we do have this also on our website. And we did also create a YouTube video for marketing purposes of our news release. So just wanted to share that with the board today. The only other thing I wanted to mention also was just another plug for our Sustainable Transportation Planning Grant Program. We are expecting, I just received yesterday news that we will be having our call the first Thursday of January, which I believe is the 5th of the month. Yes, thank you, Stacy. And that will be an 8-week application period. So if you guys are interested in putting together a proposal, or if you like any considerations, our Caltrans staff, myself included, are very happy to meet with you and discuss any potential opportunities for the Sustainable Transportation Planning Grant Program. And just a reminder, we do have our Clean California Local Grant Program, Cycle 2, call for applications, which is also coming up in January. All this information is, again, on our Caltrans website as well. That concludes my updates for today. Thank you for the time. I'm happy to take any questions, comments, concerns, or I can pass it along to MCAG staff as well.
Or Mr.
But thank you for the time, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Marlon. Thanks as always. Any questions for Marlon? Any comments? Director Petrosa.
Thank you, Marlon, and I just want to thank you for all the work that you guys do and how much you provide us with information. You know, it's interesting when you talk to other people from out the state and they say, well, Caltrans doesn't do this, and we have great people that are responsive and that are on top of it in our district, and I just wanted to say thank you for that, and I appreciate it. I would like, though, that being said, no, and again, that I also wanted to say also, I think that one of the things I brought up was the 99, the last time that we had spoken. You guys have done an amazing job in regards to highlighting or just letting people know, hey, the road is changing, be safe, be smart, do all that type of stuff. So thank you very much for that. I think it's really helped us. But in our meeting in January, I would like to come back to the grand exit thing. I know it's a different district, but I would like to see that sign changed. So that's the only thing.
Supervisor, thank you for that. We had followed up again with our district to the south, District 6, on that and even elevated it, but we'll definitely get a status update because I agree. We've tried all we can do on our District 10 side, but we'll touch base on that and see where we are and hopefully get an update for you next time.
No, but thank you very much, and I really do want to say thank you. It's interesting when you talk to other people from the state and when they say, "Oh, we can't get anything from our Caltrans people." I said, "No, you're working with the wrong people." So, but thank you very much. Appreciate it.
All right. Director Silvera, who's next?
All right, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Marlon, again, thank you for the clarification on the Clean Parks, Clean California Parks grant. I know that subsequent meetings have happened and we got the confusion about if you were awarded one in the first round and being able to apply in the second round. So thank you guys for that. Mm-hmm. And then really, just a concern, it doesn't necessarily, I guess part of it goes in my district, but the part that I'm going to talk about isn't in my district anymore. But Highway 59 South, in the city limits of Merced, mm-hmm. and leading maybe even a little bit before that, these last rains have really shown it's in pretty bad shape. I mean, it's I compare it to some of the county roads that we have out there is the quality of it. And so I know that Supervisor Espinosa has brought up over there before, but I can't recall, I've been driving over here for 4 years now. Can't really recall a time where they really did any kind of meaningful work on that section in the city limits of Merced, but it's getting to the point now where I think it's kind of getting dangerous. So just wanted to highlight that for you and put that on your radar.
Yeah, thank you, Supervisor. And we did, just to briefly, I did share our concerns from Supervisor Espinosa regarding the work that need to be done on 59. I passed that long-term maintenance team. I am aware that there also is a delegated maintenance agreement with the city for improvements on 59, but I think there's opportunity for us to coordinate with the city on revising that agreement as well. But I will definitely circle back with our maintenance team on that particular issue on MLK.
Okay, and then one other thing, it's just regarding a piece of property that the Caltrans has an easement on. When they widened 152 to the 4 lanes way back in the day, they kept a lot of easements through there, and I understand why they did that. But some of the easements that I've come across, they don't make a lot of sense. As in, like, there's one particular one at Arroyo Road, north of 152, where you could see where they kept an easement that originally that would have been like for like some kind of like turnout or an off ramp or something. But the property owner actually owns up to the corner of the road, and the only easement they have is about, by a picture, it looks like about the width of a ditch that starts on 152 and then it kind of curves around to Arroyo. So the property owner was inquiring about me, so I want to put that on your radar as well, and then I'll follow up with you with some more specifics on the details.
I appreciate that. I'll make our right-of-way team aware so they have a heads up.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Scott. Thank you, Marlon. To my right, Director Espinosa, followed by Director Moran, and then Director Nelson.
Yeah, thank you, Supervisor Rivera. I was going to comment on the same thing he just mentioned. So, also on Girard too. I don't know where it's at. The roundabout plan there too. So, or signalization. But I know that we had discussions on the roundabout in Planana and for the Girard crossing there too. So, Child's overpass. I know that's probably a city issue. You said the overpasses belong to cities, right, and the counties. I guess for to fix whatever it is, right? So Caltrans is responsible for the bottom, and the county or the cities are responsible for the top side, right?
Yeah, I'm not quite sure what the maintenance, if there's a maintenance agreement with the county, but I know there is with the city. But I have brought up not Girard, the Child's overcrossing to MCAG, and I think there is opportunity for us to partner on improvements there. So I'm going to circle back with my team on that.
Especially the off ramps are very, they became very dangerous, and the overpass with because you got so many homeless, and the kids that cross from the west side to the east side of Golden Valley High School, they have to walk, along with homeless walking around and with bikes and everything. So it's becoming very dangerous, and the overpass there's a lot of garbage. So it seems pretty filthy sometimes. So, but I also want to thank you. I got an email back from Armando Soria from your department with a request on Henry Miller and 33 regarding the crossing there. I know that the signalization is currently 95% design, so we appreciate that there. And also the Highway 140 Sutter Street, it didn't meet the MUTCD guidance for install a HOG system, but is recommended for install high visibility crosswalk with a rectangular rapid flashing beacon. So we appreciate that as well. And I know the third one was they're looking into the cleanup on the west side of southbound 99 at the off ramp there with all that burned area and the erosion right before the exit. So we appreciate it, and thank you very much for, I know, I guess it's our job to give you more work. So thank you very much. I appreciate that. So thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor.
And just real quick, and just to follow up on providing more items for your notes, sounds very small, and I just wanted to kind of bring it up if it hasn't been on your notes yet. In the city of Livingston, on the beautiful walls that you guys have put up right next to the freeway, there has been some, I see you smiling, so I think you already know what it is, some additional graffiti that has been there, and just kind of continues to be there, and if there's anything that we can do and to support you in any way to have that cleaned up, just let us know, please. And so other than that, that's it for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. I have noted that in my notes.
All right. Director Nelson? More assignments for Marlon?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Thank you for being here. I always try to remember you're just the messenger. But curious to know if anybody has an idea of when 99 through Atwater will finally be completed.
Oh.
Yeah, see, there you go.
I can get a status update for you pretty quickly. I don't want to give you a wrong date, but it's moving. But I can get a very particular status update for you if you'd like.
People in Atwater would appreciate that, yeah.
Yeah.
And the people passing through, I guess. Probably with Merced too, but.
Yeah. Last I heard, late spring of this year, 23.
That's what I heard.
Yeah, that's what I heard too. But you know, there can be delays for any given reason. So.
Okay, well, I knew you wouldn't have a
Yeah.
definitive answer. I knew that, but I will be continuing to ask that. So.
Sure, no problem.
Thank you.
But it's moving, no pun intended.
Yes.
Yeah.
Slowly.
Like the traffic.
Director Pereira?
Hi, Marlon. Couple of things. First one, not in my district, but vital to my district, is southbound V Street goes underneath the freeway, and then when you turn right on 140, right, there could be a turn arrow there because traffic stacks up underneath the overpass and then back into the intersection and on ramp. So. Anyways, the other thing is the intersection. Well, the projects in Hilmar that we've been working on. Just
Yes.
if we could get a status update. I don't know if you want to have a meeting with the stakeholders group, through our vendor.
If you'd like.
Yeah, maybe in January we could do something like that.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm starting to get questions. Hey, I thought I know things take longer than we always wish for, but yeah, it'd be nice to get an update for that.
Okay. Yeah, I know there has been discussions taking place in Hilmar about placement of certain things. But yeah, we can have a focus meeting if you'd like.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, Director Nagy?
Thank you, Chairman. Marlon, I want to jump on the bandwagon because everybody else is asking for things, and not to make light of their requests because they're all very important, but it seems that your plate is probably more full than it was on Thanksgiving, and I just wanted to ask that you have a happy holiday season.
Thank you, Director Nagy. I appreciate that. It means a lot.
Well, thanks.
All right. Anyone else? Director Yanes, Director Hoag? Okay.
I need to add one thing, please, Mr. Chairman. Sorry. Just wanted to go back to Director Pedrosa's request on the LeGrand signage.
Yeah.
I would recommend District 10, our office, Dana with the county or someone from his team, and potentially Director Pedroso, because I believe, and if you want to bring District 6, obviously, I believe there's just been a lot of, I think District 6 was amenable to it, but wanted to make sure the county was okay. And then I checked with the county, and there were some concerns at the staff level about some confusion of if you're coming from that direction. So I think we all just need to get in the same Zoom room and just get everyone to nod and agree that this is what we want to do, and then the appropriate assuming it is still okay with District 6. I think that's where we got lost last time, is it just kind of fell through the cracks because there was concerns about whether or not the county was in agreement to it, and I didn't want to speak for the supervisor to the county staff. So
Yeah, thank you for that, Madam Director. I was not aware that the county had some concern, perhaps, so I agree. Let's get a meeting together. I'll work with our team on that.
And I wasn't aware either, but I see our admirable CEO in the back feverishly taking notes, and so I'm going to throw him under the bus and make sure that we get it all taken care of. Yeah. Wake up, Raul. I'm just kidding. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? All right. Marlon, as always, thank you for for being here and for addressing our issues.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. Item 9, informational items. These items are included for informational purposes only unless any members of the board desire any of them to be pulled for separate discussion. Is there anything anybody would like to have pulled for separate discussion? Director Moran.
Thank you, Chairman. I just have a question and possible guidance on 9A3, calendar of meetings.
Okay.
If we can have a separate discussion.
Yeah. Is there
Thank you.
anything else anyone would like to have a separate discussion on? Okay, seeing none. 9A Romanet 3. Stacy, would you be the best one to address that, or would you rather?
Sure, I can. Unless, Director Moran, do you have any specific questions, or did you want me to review the schedule?
It's a question and then also a request. Just wondering, because I mean, I kind of try to keep up with the previous meetings before today, but this is something that was not in my radar before today's meeting in regards to maybe I can get some information on how it was set up. Was it just or previously approved by the board, by this board, or was that just something from a recommendation from staff? And then my question or my ask would be for this board to consider having rather maybe 25 or 30% of those meetings later in the day, because based on the MCAG's goal number 2, which is communicate effectively to partners and the public to enhance policy decision making, I think that would help having public input. And it's a possibility, and then it's just an option. If it works, it works. If it not, then it doesn't. But at least we can try. So, thanks.
Thank you. So as to the meeting schedule, the board bylaws establish the meeting schedule is the third Thursday of every month. There are some, and I'm going to look to Joy. I don't know if you even know off the top of the head if there's any changes that if we make a change, it's likely due to a holiday disruption. But generally, we stick to the third Thursday of every month at 3 o'clock. I see Council has turned her camera on. If there's something additional there, as to and she may speak to the timing issue, just for I think the benefit of especially our new board members, something like this where there is a request of a director to consider something not agendized. We do have our agenda request policy, so the appropriate, and again, I'll turn to Council, but something like this would come on the next agenda to establish if there was a majority interest to explore the proposal that Director Moran has suggested in terms of the timing. Council?
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Good afternoon, members of the chair. Oh, I'm all over the place today. Okay, so yes, not only is the date set in the bylaws, the time is also set in the bylaws. The board has considered an amendment to the bylaws previously to change the meeting time. It did not pass. If this issue is to be brought before the board again, as Stacy mentioned, we have an agenda item request policy. You would need to make a request at a meeting that an item be added to the next agenda. At that meeting, the board would discuss it and determine whether they wish to have staff delve into that issue further and bring it back to the board for action.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Hayden. Anything else, Director Moran? Okay. All right. Thank you, sir. Anybody else on this?
Just a quick question. I noticed that the meetings were going to be here every meeting now instead of rotating. Is there a reason for that, or somebody? I don't remember. I missed a couple of meetings, so I know maybe I wasn't privileged with that.
That was a board direction some time ago last year, largely to be able to provide consistent virtual connectivity, and also the requirement that this is the facility that has both the staff support to run the audiovisual setup that's here, so that it was a board decision. If the board is interested in resuming alternate locations, then that is absolutely something that we we can discuss. We should have the discussion though at the same time about the virtual capabilities and the interactive capabilities at all the other venues.
Yeah.
Which I will say that as we approach the deadline for our AB 361, transitioning over into the new legislative requirements for virtual meetings and whatnot, we will be having that conversation in February, which might be, if that is also part of the discussion, we can add that element to the discussion at that time.
Okay, I just wanted to ask, just in case the new board members, wanted the info, and we can talk about it later then. Thank you.
All right. On to item 10, which is the consent calendar. All consent calendar items listed below may be acted upon with one vote unless specifically removed for separate consideration by a member of the board, a member of staff, or a member of the public. Any members of the board wish any of the items pulled for separate consideration?
I just want to comment on item 10.3.
Okay.
10A3.
10A Roman at 3. Okay, so we'll pull that for separate consideration. Any members of the public or any members of staff wish to pull any of the 4 consent items for separate consideration? Okay.
Chair, motion to approve consent calendar minus 3, 10-3.
Well, I don't want to pull it. Let me just comment on it. Just give my, yeah. Is that okay?
Sure.
Okay. Well, I just want to make sure that when we approved a contract extension, I know we had several comments in the past from people complaining about the aesthetics of the restrooms at the transport center in downtown. Not just downtown, but the other one. Yeah. So I want to make sure that if we're paying for this much for the janitorial service, that they are maintained. And so I just wanted to address that. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Espinoza. This is for our admin building. This is not for the transpo. The transpo is maintained by the city. We pay a monthly fee to the city to maintain the transpo for cleaning it. And if someone goes in there and, destroys it, there's been times where they stuff down the toilet, which takes a day to get it cleaned out. You have to fish it. So this is not related to the transpo. It's only for our admin building.
How about the operations and maintenance facility?
This is only for our admin building.
Okay.
The contractor is responsible for the admin building, but we could relay that message to them.
Okay. Thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you. That's it.
Motion to approve the consent calendar.
It's a motion from Director Silvera. Second from Director Pedroso. Any opposition? Okay, seeing none. Joy, the motion passes unanimously. Takes us on to item 11, which are our Merced County Association of Government action items. Item 11A is the Inland Port project to authorize the resolution of support. Stacy?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I will ask, it looks like our team is getting ready, but I will be inviting Simran Judy from Fresno COG to join us virtually, and our staff will lead her, load up her presentation. This, for those other than the new members, this should not be a new topic of discussion. Just last month, we did have a board item, and the board took action to support the concept of the California Inland Port Project. And it was at that time that we invited, and actually Fresno COG staff had offered to make a presentation to this board to talk specifically more about their project, and also a funding application that is being prepared to be submitted to the state to fund this project. And the action item is to ask this board to pass a resolution of support to be included in that grant application that will be submitted here in the next couple of weeks. And I also just want to say, because I know I'm sensitive to this, Simran was very kind in offering to be here in person, and with some of the timing challenges and the fact that her board meeting is also this evening, I offered her to be presenting virtual. So I did want to give her credit for being completely willing to be here in person. So Simran, thank you for changing up your plan and for joining us virtually today.
Thank you, Stacy, and I appreciate that introduction. I want to introduce myself again. My name is Simran Judy. I'm serving as the co-project manager for the California Inland Port Project. I'm going to be presenting on behalf of our executive director, Tony Boren, who unfortunately can't be here today due to unforeseen circumstances. And so we can go ahead and click the next slide if possible. Thank you. So I'll briefly touch on the origins of the project. It has the ability to address a multitude of challenges that have been exemplified by the pandemic and supply chain bottlenecks. So as you may be aware, the San Joaquin Valley has some of the nation's worst air quality due to the mountain ranges trapping air pollutants, including heavy truck traffic. So for the purpose of the San Joaquin and Sacramento regions serving the north and south goods movement, since all the ag products grown here are moved via truck opposed to the Class 1 railroads, the California Inland Port Project was then developed in 2019 by engaging the resources of California's critical economic components of exporting ag goods and importing consumer goods. Next slide, please. So the initial studies found market feasibility as well as to go ahead and carry out this project, and notably the creation of 100,000 new jobs in the project region of the disadvantaged San Joaquin Valley and Sacramento regions. Next slide, please. So this slide truly here encompasses all that the project seeks to address and improve. Public objectives include an efficient supply chain system by providing support to the San Joaquin Valley growers and exporting goods, which will circumvent and prevent issues we've seen recently. It will significantly increase economic competitiveness, providing jobs and opportunity to disadvantaged communities with equity, as well as a reduction in GHG and air criteria pollutants with the reduction of trucks on State Route 99 and leading to higher safety along the 99 corridor. Also, it will promote the public and private collaboration. Next slide, please. So the significant decrease in VMT and GHG emissions, and as well as the clean energy core that this project is founded on, will catalyze the shift to clean fleet and also provide public health benefits. Next slide, please. The California Inland Port System will address both current and future challenges that the San Joaquin and Sacramento regions growers are dealing with, and it's been ultimately founded with the Port of Los Angeles, which is the highest volume container gateway in America, and they found that there are higher efficiencies by implementing an inland port system, i.e. this project. Next slide, please. So this slide is very notable in the early stages. The San Joaquin Valley Air District conducted an analysis of if all truck cargo was moved to rail, and it found that the nitrogen oxides, which are the essential component of air pollution, would be reduced up to 84%, while greenhouse gas emissions would be reduced up to 93%. Next slide, please. Also, the economic benefits include the leveraging of private investment, new job creation, and overall increasing the economic competitiveness of the San Joaquin Valley and Sacramento regions. Next slide, please. As well as the safety by reducing truck trips in the region, reducing traffic fatalities overall. Next slide, please. You could go ahead and maybe click about 4 to 5 times. Thank you. So here's some, maybe one more time or 2 more times. Sorry, thank you. So the most notable fact that I'd like to cover, and it's that currently all of the cargo movement is through truck, and so approximately 1.1 million 20-foot equivalent units are moved via truck in the San Joaquin Valley and Sacramento region, polluting the valley. And so the market feasibility analyses found that the imports and exports within the regions equal out, and just with the seasonality of agriculture, it varies through the year, but it makes sense to conduct imports and exports in this inland port system. And it will also allow growers to have more options in exporting their crops by cargo moving onto rail, and again, the health and positive health and environmental benefits associated. Next slide, please. So phase 1 of the project initially was launched by the ports of Los Angeles and California Forward. And so that I'll just kind of want to go through these phases quickly. So the next slide, phase 2, covers the process in which the MPOs came on, and Fresno COG further helped with the market readiness analyses. Next slide, please. And phase 3, we were awarded the Caltrans sustainability grant, and we're able to further develop the financial model for the project and create the framework moving forward. And next slide, please. Phase 4, we were designated a regional infrastructure accelerator grant from USDOT to again build on the private public financing and move this project along. Next slide, please. And so overall, the partners on the public side include the state, the federal government, as well as the air quality districts, the Valley MPOs from Sacramento through Bakersfield, and the ports of LA, Long Beach, and Stockton. And on the private side, we have the shippers, as well as the clean energy companies and rails, the railroads involved and supportive. Next slide, please. And so from the project delivery team is serving to not just develop, but really deliver this project. So we have Fresno COG serving as a project manager with GLD Partners, Nossaman to help form the entity, Jacobs Engineering, and among other firms. Go ahead and go to the next slide, please. And so this one you might have to click through again a couple times, but this is just to give a visual of what goods movement looks like in the United States currently. Goods are typically moved east to west, and so this was a term coined by Gene Soroka, who's executive director at the Port of Los Angeles, connecting California. So that blue shaded region represents the inland port, whereas those green squares represent the trade ports or satellites, what I'll dive into a little deeper here. Next slide, please. So there will be a system of inland ports, trade ports being larger, and then a series of satellites serving as the truck charging facilities for the trucks that are moving cargo. Next slide, please. And so the trade ports are, or truck mobility complexes, will focus on the intermodal movement of goods adjacent to State Route 99 and the Class 1 railroads. Next slide, please. And so the satellite hubs, they're not required to be along State Route 99 or the Class 1 railroads, but they'll be really there to serve the exporting of the ag products out of the San Joaquin Valley and Sacramento regions. And then that bubble map on the left, I just wanted to include for the sake of this presentation, the conceptual squares were kind of placed there from a valley-wide study done on I-5 about truck trips where they originate and end. So that's that bubble map on the left. Next slide, please. And so then again, like just a deeper understanding of what these truck mobility complexes or trade ports will look like. They will be having a rail intermodal. Next slide, please. So the rail intermodal with the truck mobility complex, including private sectors such as retail and just a truck storage yard, as well as the charging stations, room for tech. So inviting the private sectors to these larger complexes. Next slide, please. And we go ahead and go to the last slide. So next, thank you. So sorry, just for the sake of time. So I'll go ahead and wrap up. So right now the project is in the process of applying for the one-time program for port and freight infrastructure. There was $1.1 billion earmarked from the governor's surplus. From that, $840 million goes straight to the ports of LA and Long Beach, leaving roughly $360 million for the rest of the ports in California. The project application will be due early January, and so the California Inland Port project is aiming to apply for this grant program since there has been notes for innovative, transformative projects such as the California Inland Port Project. So, thank you, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have at this time.
Thank you very much, Senator, for your presentation. Are there any questions, comments? All right. Director Nagy.
Mine is more of just a comment. I think this is a great undertaking and a very worthwhile project. But again, I question the state's divvying up of the funds. 1.2 million, and 70% of it goes to Long Beach and LA, and I don't see where they are inland ports by name of the of what we're trying to do. It's inland ports. It's not oceanfront ports or whatever. And that leaves the 360 million for everything that we want to do. And this is a very grandiose project, and I think it's worthwhile, but 360 million is a drop in the bucket of what's going to be needed, you know, to bring this thing to fruition. So I just wanted to point that out, and I'd like to thank Simran, a great report. Thank you for all your hard work on it, and let's hope we get something done. Thank you.
Director Pereira.
Yeah, I have a question. You mentioned in your presentation that you had letters of support from both railroads, the UP, is that UP and the BNSF?
It's not necessarily letters of support, but they have been involved with the project and they have been supportive of the project since fruition. And also, it's not just the ports competing for this money. Railroads would also be competing for this port and freight infrastructure program, and we're cognizant of that fact. So for this one-time funding, we're only requesting I don't mean to say only, but $45 million, which will leverage other state and federal grant programs that speak to clean energy and goods movement. So I just wanted to also address that. But
and what's the time frame in which the money gets awarded and when it has to be utilized or spent?
So they would like for, there's a different, since this would be designated a pilot program or innovative transformative project, they would want the money to be spent by 2024.
And how are you going to do that?
So we're only applying for phase 1 of the project. So it would be for the initial infrastructure and truck charging infrastructure. So we're not asking for the whole project to be funded under this grant. It will be just the initial trade ports.
Okay, thanks.
Director Nelson.
Problem with people asking questions is it begets more questions. So in Merced County, then, since we have the railroads run pretty close to each other through here, and it seems like Castle would be an ideal spot for this, how is the decision made as to which rail line these are going to be running on? And then how do we figure out in Merced County where it's actually going to be, the trade port that is?
Yeah, so Merced County definitely has the opportunity to host one of these truck mobility complexes. It would either be the main, one of the trade ports or one of the satellite hubs. So if it's a satellite hub, it wouldn't need rail. It would just be a truck charging facility. So that could be off of the Class 1 and State Route 99 corridor. I don't know if that answers your question.
No, it doesn't, but that's okay. It's fine. Thank you.
Director Silvera.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I know, I understand phase 1 is for the, I guess, the charging stations for trucks. I haven't seen a whole lot of those out on the road yet. So how confident are you in the technology that the electric trucks are going to be there? I mean, you're talking about applying for 45 million, I think is what I heard the number was, to put truck charging infrastructure in. That would seem like a lot of money if we don't even have trucks that actually can connect to the chargers. So in your guys' all those studies that you've done, where are we at in that industry right now?
So we are looking to use a mixture of solar with EV and hydrogen, and we've been working closely with CEC in their development of the hydrogen highway in California. So there is being efforts there, and the reason we're asking for a smaller amount is we would like to leverage that to get into other funding from the state and federal government and also private investment.
All right. Director Yanez.
So my question is, it's probably further down the road, but as far as the truck traffic centers, at what phase or what anticipation are you looking at working with local jurisdictions for that? I mean, I saw some of the circles on the map that were pretty large, so I'm just trying to figure out at what phase would that be probably confirmed or more pinpoint?
We're hoping by the end of Q1, we would send out the call for sites and have the San Joaquin Valley counties and Sacramento region counties to apply for a location for the both the satellites and Tradeport hubs.
Okay, thank you.
Director Pereira.
Yeah, do these, so will these satellite sites have to go through environmental review?
Yes, but in the site selection criteria, there will be some further information on what the environmental components of those sites will be, like hydrology and the zoning. So the extent of what each site will have to go through for environmental review will really depend on which sites are selected.
Thanks.
All right. Anyone else? Director Moran.
Just real quick, in regards to this satellite sites, what would be the requirement in regards to how big of a piece of land we need to look at to even consider it adequate for what you're looking for?
So initially we were looking at much larger pieces of land, but after going further into the project and the studies, we don't think that we need as large of a parcel as we initially stated. So it would be roughly 300 acres or less for a satellite, and maybe even less than 500 for a major trade port.
Okay. Anyone else? All right, seeing none. Simran, thank you for your work on this. Thank you for your presentation. Stacy, is there anyone else set to speak, or is that all we have?
That is it, Mr. Chair. This is an action item requesting board support for the attached resolution.
Okay. Before us today is to authorize a resolution whether or not to support this California Indian Port project. Obviously, it's in preliminary stages, long way to go, a lot of work ahead of us. But any discussion or a motion on behalf of the board?
I'd make a motion to approve the motion, the resolution.
I guess I'll second with that. You know, like I said, if we can benefit from grant funds in our county, and we're able to produce a lot of jobs in the future, so I got that in mind. So I'll second it.
Okay. We have a motion to support or a motion to authorize a resolution support from Director Nelson, a second from Director Espinosa. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, seeing none.
You can do public comment or no?
I don't think it's a public.
We would do public comment before the action.
Yeah. But before we take action on the motion, is there anybody from the public who wishes to be heard on this?
There are no hands raised on Zoom.
Okay. Thank you, Mary Michael. No one on Zoom, no one, seeing no one too here in the audience. Any further discussion or any discussion on the motion? Good. Director Pereira.
I guess just for kind of, I don't know, transparency or what, I'm not sure exactly what I'll call it, but just so you all know what I know, right, I think is important before the vote. And that is that the chances, I mean, unless the Fresno COG has cut a special deal with the state, you know, this project's going to be pretty tough going forward because of the time frame for the grants, you know. And so, you know, the railroads, when we had discussions when we opened our inland port, the railroad said that that we were as far south as they would be willing to move goods from the Port of Los Angeles. And so you know, that's why I asked the question about if they had, you know, support from the railroads. So I don't think it's a problem for us to approve this, but I just don't want you to think we're approving something that you know, is a for sure thing and that we're going to get inland port, because you're going to go back and talk to your jurisdictions. So I just want to temper that, I guess, is what I'm trying to say, just so you know. All right? That's it.
Understood. Thank you, Lloyd. All right, anyone else? All right, is there any opposition to the motion? Okay, seeing none, motion passes unanimously. Thanks again, Simran.
Thank you.
All right, wish you good fortune going forward on this project. All right, takes us to item 11B, which is the REAP 2.0 grant. And turn it over to Meg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, directors. This item's regarding MCAG's grant application to the state's Regional Early Action Program of 2021, or REAP 2.0. And under the program, MCAG is eligible for up to 3.9 in formula funding for implementation projects that support infill housing and reduce vehicle miles traveled. Last month, we presented our framework for our draft grant application, and this item is just a follow-up on that, requesting authorization to submit our final grant application. And just some brief background, this is a state program allocating grant funding by formula to MPOs. And the guidelines require that we conduct outreach to determine how the funding should be spent in our region before submitting the final application, which is due December 31st. MCAG hosted a series of workshops and an online survey this fall asking stakeholders to weigh in on how they wanted to see this funding spent locally. And we have had numerous discussions with local jurisdiction staff as well. And based on the feedback we received, MCAG developed a draft framework outlining our proposed use for the funds. MCAG is proposing to develop 2 separate programs with this funding, with the state's approval, of course, which were included in the draft framework that came to this board and went out for public review last month. Those 2 programs I will briefly outline. The first is a sub-allocation program using 25% of the funding, which comes out to about $900,000, and this would be sub-allocated directly to local jurisdictions via formula to implement the 6-cycle housing elements. So this can be used for rezoning for your 6-cycle housing element, addressing infrastructure needs. It would have a planning focus. And from discussions with the REAP work group, there's been support for a base allocation and then a formula allocation based on your regional housing need allocation. And then the second program that MCAG is proposing to develop is a competitive program utilizing 75% of the funding, which comes out to about $2.7 million. And this would be focused on implementation projects that support infill development and reduce vehicle miles traveled. And it's the state's strong preference that this funding largely be used for implementation projects. So we would, it would be a competitive program, and we would develop the guidelines and the scoring criteria with local participation early next year. So the draft framework was out for public review between November 8th and 29th, and we did not receive any comments. And as of right now, we're just structuring these programs to be flexible. We expect some conversations with the state to refine them early next year, as well as to work with local agencies and stakeholders on the guidelines and the scoring criteria. So I have more information to come early next year. The state would need to review and approve our grant application. But this is an action item. We are requesting that the governing board approve resolution 2022/12-15-1 authorizing MCAG to prepare and submit MCAG's REAP 2.0 full application for funding up to a little bit over $3.6 million to HCD, and to delegate authority to the executive director to execute a state standard agreement and any other documentation, including amendments to secure the full REAP 2.0 allocation. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Questions for Meg? Director Silvera?
Thank you. I guess, can you help me understand, I know it cites a lot of different government codes, but we're allocated 3.9, but we can only apply for 3.6, and then it refers to a bunch of codes that I don't know. So, like, can you just walk me through that?
So MCAG is eligible for 3.9 total. We applied for an advanced application, which was it could have been up to 10%. We applied for a little bit less than that, and that was funding that was used for some of the outreach efforts, and then also it will cover MCAG's administration of the programs through the life cycle of 2026.
Perfect. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? All right. Any members of the public wish to be heard on this item? Anything, Mayor Michael? Okay, nothing online. Anybody in the audience wish to be heard? Okay, seeing no one.
I would like to second that.
A motion from Director Silvera, second from Director Espinosa. Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none. Any opposition? All right, seeing none, motion passes unanimously. All right. Meg, item 11C, which is the multi-jurisdictional housing element contract.
Thank you. So MCAG is coordinating with local jurisdictions to prepare a multi-jurisdictional housing element for the 6th cycle update. All 7 jurisdictions have agreed to participate in the multi-jurisdictional effort. And I'll provide some brief background for some of you that may not have participated in these discussions over the last few months. Jurisdictions in California typically prepare individual housing elements, and you're required to update them every 8 years. The 5th cycle was adopted in 2016, so this is the 6th cycle that we're going to be working on. And there are some significant advantages to preparing a multi-jurisdictional housing element versus an individual one. Those advantages include economies of scale and a cohesive approach to addressing some of the new state requirements, which have changed significantly since the 5th cycle. So this is a joint effort under one contract to prepare a multi-jurisdictional housing element, but each of you would individually adopt your own portion of this as your own housing element to cover that requirement. And over the last several months, MCG coordinated with local staff to develop a cost-sharing agreement to share the cost of the consultant contract. It's anticipated that MCG's remaining REAP 1.0 funding would cover about half the cost of the contract, and then jurisdictions would be responsible for the other half. MCG requested that jurisdictions wishing to participate in the joint effort provide a resolution confirming your participation and commitment to your share of the cost-sharing agreement by December 1st. That cost-sharing agreement also included a monetary deposit for each jurisdiction to help MCAG with the cash flow, since it is a rather large contract. And all jurisdictions have passed resolutions. And MCAG has issued invoices to each jurisdiction for that deposit, which will be due December 30th. And regarding the RFP process, we issued an RFP back in September for a consultant to prepare the 6th cycle multi-jurisdictional housing element. We received just one proposal, but it was from a very qualified team. The consultant selection committee with representatives from local jurisdictions evaluated the proposer and are recommending Rincon consultants for the contract. The Rincon team includes Mintier Harnish and Veronica Tam Associates as sub-consultants, and the Rincon team has extensive experience preparing housing element updates and is well versed in the new requirements for the 6th cycle, which is very valuable. And Rincon prepared a really thorough proposal and scope of work outlining a path towards developing the region's first multi-jurisdictional housing element. And regarding the scope, there is one notable point that we have discussed with Rincon and with local jurisdictions. We're going to be working, and that's regarding the environmental compliance task for this contract. So MCG will be working with local jurisdictions and Rincon in early 2023 once the housing element, the sites inventory is underway, to explore options for compliance with CEQA, and specifically depending on the number of jurisdictions that will need to do a rezone to accommodate the regional housing need allocation. Whether a programmatic environmental impact report makes sense or rather just individual mitigated or negative declarations. For jurisdictions that will need to rezone, there might be future advantages to preparing an environmental impact report. But since MCAG does not adopt or implement housing elements, we would need to determine a lead agency if we decided to go with a programmatic EIR. So the total contract amount is $1,030,743, and that amount can accommodate either a programmatic EIR or individual and mitigated negative declarations for each participating jurisdiction. So we'll work with local jurisdictions and the RINCON team early next year to determine the best path forward, but I did want to note that. And we are excited that each jurisdiction is interested in participating in this effort. The state has been really supportive, and I think we have a really fantastic consultant team, and we will continue to provide updates to you over the next 18 months or so as we prepare this. But this is an action item. So MCG requests the governing board authorize the executive director to enter into an agreement with RINCON Consultants for the development of the 6-cycle multi-jurisdictional housing element for an amount not to exceed $1,030,743, contingent upon only after executed resolutions are received from each of the 7-member agencies, which we have received. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Meg. Any initial questions or comments?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Meg. Obviously, I guess each jurisdiction and the county can ask questions on, how it's going to impact and the zone's going to change, right? In order for that each jurisdiction to meet the housing element. So, and then after that, then I guess they'll have to amend their general plan or do a new general plan, right? So.
This housing element is a portion of your general plan, and some jurisdictions might not have to do a rezone. We won't know until we get further along in the site's inventory analysis in the spring.
Well, I guess it's probably positive for every community. We have no choice, so we have to follow state law and update it. So, but it's savings for all the communities and a savings, all together. So, I'll make a motion after everybody has a comment. So,
any other comments?
One comment, Mr. Chair, if I could. I'm just thankful that everybody agreed to the resolution, because I remember there was a lot of confusion at the last meeting. What happens if not everybody agrees? So I'm just thankful that everybody agreed. And really, in all seriousness, I think for our smaller jurisdictions, this is a win-win. In order to do this as a region, county-wide, taking on the expenses for some of our smaller jurisdictions, it would cost them tremendous amount more money. And I think this is a great example of partnering and working together and really stretching the dollars as far as possible. So good work on that team.
Yes, sir. All right, anyone else? Public comment. Mary Michael, anything in the virtual world? Nothing. Anybody from the public wish to be heard? Okay, seeing none, back to the board. Further discussion or a motion?
I'll go ahead and motion to approve.
Is there a second? Espinosa, was there a second over there? You guys want to flip a coin for it, or good? I think I heard Nagy first, but I could be close. All right.
I will acquiesce to our new member.
Yeah.
All right. Do that. We have a motion from Director Espinosa, second from Director Moran. Any opposition? Okay, seeing none, motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Meg. All right, Elizabeth, welcome. This is item 11D, which is the distribution formula for approximately $1.2 million in LTF funds. Elizabeth.
Thank you. Good afternoon, board. Good afternoon, some of the new members I haven't met yet. I will kick off on this item. This has actually been on the agenda. It was on last month and then was tabled for rediscussion this month. So just to go back in time, just a short amount, the MCAG region received some COVID relief funds, and those funds in September the board allocated to the transit agency and asked that the transit agency in turn distribute some of these local transportation funds out to the cities. So right now, the transit agency is holding this $1.234 million in transportation funds, while the board kind of decides how to distribute them back out to the agencies. The discussion that occurred was regarding how the LTF funds are typically distributed amongst the agencies. It's typically, or historically, I understand, been done based on population. And you can see that formula here, what a population-based formula would mean to each of the 7 agencies. There was a request or a suggestion by a board member a couple of months ago about looking at different formulas with like a baseline, for example. We've seen different formulas and different types of, funding allocations, and it was brought up that you could do a base percentage per agency and then distribute the remainder based on population, as an example. So that was brought back by staff, and there are some examples in your agenda about what it might look like with a distribution. Let's say if you take 10%, spread it equally amongst the 7 agencies, and then distribute the rest by population. And there are examples all the way from 5 to 25 here in your staff report. At the last meeting, when this came up, there was technical difficulties and discussion, and the board voted to kind of look at this again. I would reiterate from a transportation planning perspective, this item we're talking about, specifically in this agenda, it asks, how do you want to distribute these LTF funds? It's this board's intention and direction that we continue to look moving forward with LTF about how we will manage LTF funds. I think every year when they come to the board, there's kind of we need this much for TJPA and rail, and this is an annual process, so that might also be discussed. But as far as, today for the agenda is what do we do here? I will bring up again for the behalf of the technical research or review board, they said, let's wait for the future kind of process to see how to manage LTF, but it was understood that the board is looking to distribute these 1.2. So I just want to make that point that, we're looking for direction on this today if you have it. If you're not ready to make that direction, then TJPA will still be holding the funds, and they'll be there for you when you're ready. So
all right.
Happy to take questions.
Questions for Elizabeth? None. Just to refresh everybody's memory, what can this money be used for?
The local transportation funds are very flexible. They're one of the most flexible, which is why we did actually ask for TGPA to trade those back to the agencies. Pretty much any transportation project. The 1.2 that TJPA took had to go through the CTC process, and it was federal COVID relief funding. So any transportation use, essentially.
Okay.
Very flexible. Often used for maintenance, from what I see.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just want to kind of bring a fine point to kind of what your options are. So the options are, if you go, the recommendation from the TRB was to hold, as Elizabeth mentioned, the distribution of these funds until a broader policy around future LTF distribution takes place. This board has taken action previously on what to do when there's some remaining LTF after the transit uses are identified, and there's a bike ped set aside, a rail set aside, and this concept of having a kind of an account where this revenue could just generate, and we would define some kind of a process where projects could apply for these funds and could be allocated. That is all to be done coming into the next year. So the TRB recommendation was to have that conversation and kind of potentially roll these dollars into that broader context. So option 1 would be to wait for that policy discussion. Option 2, which I think was the spirit of the recommendation last month, was to distribute these funds only, with no implication for future LTF, just this pot of funds, to the jurisdictions based on some formula. And then, of course, in option 2, you have several options of a breakdown between what is a baseline amount that every jurisdiction will get, and then what is the a percentage that would go to by population. I don't know if that helped or just made it more complicated, but
it helped. Maybe a little bit of both.
Yeah, maybe both.
No, thank you, Stacey. Any more questions right now? Comments? Mary Michael, anything from the public? All right. Would anybody in the audience like to be heard on this item?
That was so suspenseful.
That was suspenseful. They look for a second. It looked like they were blowing up our Instagram feed or something while these people want to talk. Okay, back to the board for discussion. Director Pereira.
Well, the TRB kind of recommended that we hold these funds, and so that makes sense to me. that, and then later we could develop a broader policy. You know, so, I mean, that'd kind of be what I'm thinking. But, you know, if somebody has a thought or an idea different, that's fine too.
Yeah. Director Nagy?
Well, I was just going to ask the executive director to also for our new members to explain to them where these funds came from, that they were traded from another fund and so forth.
And I'm RSTP, additional RSTP funds.
Yes, they were COVID relief funds that went through the, I think I cut out, but went through the RSTP program. Yes.
So essentially, the dollars that came to MCAG were not, I'll say, this color of funding. It was through a different program. It was COVID relief specifically. The process, though, to access those dollars was more cumbersome, and there were more requirements around how you could use them. So staff proposed and the board supported essentially swapping those funds that were meant to go out to you all with the local transportation funds that we had that the transit system, the transit agency has for operations, which are very flexible. So it basically took the reporting requirements, the application processing requirements out of each of your staff's hands and rolled it into the transit agency to take care of through the CTC and everything, and then turned over and is now made available these much simpler dollars that you have much more flexibility and access to without having to jump through the hoops of the bureaucracy to get to them. Does that help, Mr. Director Nagy?
Yes, it does. And that brings my point is that these actually were CARES Act dollars, so they're supposed to be spent there's a deadline in which to spend them. So if we live by that, then we should allocate them this year.
Further discussion? Director Moran?
Yes. Well, I think my question goes back to the director that I think you guys mentioned that one of the reasons why you asked for this to be continued to this meeting was to get more information. So I'm just wondering what the part of the previous conversations before today were from the other directors and ideas and opinions, so we could be more, I guess, educated on the recent whatever decision is going to be today.
Director Nagy?
Okay.
It was actually...
Yes, it was my recommendation. You know, with Measure V, we came up with a plan of how we divide things, and it wasn't solely based on population as had been in the past. It was based on a percentage being allocated to each jurisdiction, and then the balance of it being allocated by population, which at that time seemed like a more fair way of distributing the funds. If you look at the original, what we would get, smaller jurisdictions like myself and Dos Palos are getting basically $25,000 and $26,000 out of this, whereas the county's getting almost $400,000, and City of Merced $386,000. And this was all CARES money that was supposed to be split. And it wasn't based on population when it was CARES Act money. So my recommendation was that this board come to an agreement that we set aside a certain amount, whether that amount is 5, 10, 15, 20, whatever, as a base amount. And that way it will help the smaller jurisdictions, because as you know, you can't really do anything in a small jurisdiction for $25,000. You can't even do the engineering. But if we went to that option D, which is a 25% base, then Dos Palos gets 62.6, Gustine gets 63.5, but the county and so forth, they don't lose all that much. They're still getting $340,000. So yes, they're losing a little, but they're helping the bottom up kind of philosophy. And that's where I came from on that. So it's up to the board.
Go ahead, Steve.
And just if you are looking at your agenda packet, there's a spreadsheet on page 135 that has the various options of 5, 10, 15, and 25. And on page 133, is the table that has just the solely population numbers that Director Nagy referenced.
Okay, thank you, Stacy. Further comments at this time? Director Moran.
So just to add, that helps a lot, kind of getting a different perspective other than, and I think it goes back to when I was reviewing the agenda and the information. That's exactly what I was thinking, I was thinking about communities like Gastine and Dos Palos that, $20,000 or $30,000 is really very minimal, even though an additional 20 might help a little bit more, and it's not going to make a big difference for the larger entities. So definitely I think it would make sense to really support those smaller communities, even though it doesn't seem like a lot, but it does go a little bit of ways. So I would encourage my fellow directors to analyze that into perspective, and $20,000 or $30,000 for the bigger entities would not make such a big impact as it would for the smaller communities. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else? Okay, I think if anybody's got a better idea, let me know, but I think maybe we can sort of two-step this, and the threshold issue would be Director Pereira's initial thought that we should follow the recommendation of TRB and postpone this to a later date and come up with a more general, comprehensive plan. I'm not saying we do that or not, but just I think as a threshold issue, we should gauge whether or not there's general support for that. And then if not, we see if we can go forward today and hammer out a number, unless anybody's got a better idea.
I think we should go ahead and vote on something, whether something that seems fair for everybody, whether it's 15, 20, or 25%. I think that we should go ahead and might as well use it, and that way we can go ahead and, because there's time frame that we need to spend it on.
Okay. Your preference is to proceed today?
Yeah, whether it's the 15 or 25%, I'll be happy to support everybody. So.
Okay. Is there a preference is there anybody? Don't want to put words in your mouth, Lloyd. But is there a preference on the part of anyone else to postpone it per the recommendation of the TRB and come back with more of a general policy and a comprehensive policy at a later point?
I'll withdraw my recommendation, only because this is really not LTF money, right? It's traded money, and so I don't think we're setting a precedence by dealing with it today.
Okay.
So I'm good.
All right. One time, Stacy.
Sorry, just for the record, I do just want to clarify that though with the swap, there aren't the same requirements on timing. So I just, the spirit of it, I understood is that it was a swap. So, I just want to clarify to Director Espinosa's point, the spirit of it is the time frame of the original dollar, the color of money, but the actual reality of the LTF dollars don't have the same one. So I just want to make sure that I'm representing the facts correctly.
All right.
Hand over here.
Yeah, I'm ready to make a motion. I think you got the 0 regular hold by population, or you got option D is 25. We'll split the difference, call it 15. I think for communities like Dos Palos and Gastine, and those are real dollars for them, and as a county, I never, that we still have 90,000 plus residents that we represent, but I think to help our local jurisdictions out, I would make a recommendation that we go with option C.
Okay.
I'll put that in the form of a motion.
Let's second that.
You have a motion from Director Silvera for 15%, second from Director Espinosa. Is there any further discussion? Okay, seeing none. Any? That's where already.
Any public comment?
Yeah. I think we discussed it already. Yeah. Yes. Okay. Any additional public comment?
No, I wanted this one. That's what's
Okay. 15%. Any further discussion? Okay. Any counter motions?
I think the last meeting, I had suggested option D, and because of technical difficulty, no one could review this. But the first motion was option D. And I just think that with inflation the smaller jurisdictions can do more with the 25% than 15. And it makes a huge difference. It's almost 20 grand, so.
Okay. We hear, we'll take a roll call on Director Silvera's motion first. Joy?
Roll call vote is for the 15% option. Director Espinoza,
Yes.
Director Hoag,
No.
Director Yanez,
Yes.
Director Moran,
No.
Director Nagy, Director Nelson, Director Pereira,
There you go.
Yes.
Director Serrato,
Yes.
Director Silvera, motion fails.
What was the count? It was 5-5?
5-4.
5-4. Okay. Second motion was for option D, 25%. That's Director Hoag's motion. There's second from Director Moran. Okay. Again, roll call vote.
Director Espinoza,
Yes.
Director Hoag,
Yes.
Oh, real?
Yanez,
Yes.
Director Moran,
Yes.
Director Nagy, Director Nelson,
Yes.
Director Pereira,
Aye.
Director Serrato,
Doesn't matter at this point. No.
Director Silvera. Motion carries.
Yay. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, congratulations, April. Pat?
Thank you. Hey, I
Take-
gotta fight for the little ones, man.
Big win for me. All right, takes us to item 12, our discussion items. Elizabeth, still back to you. 12A is the RTP and FTIP updates, amendment updates.
Thank you. So two of, I would say, MCAG's core documents are our Regional Transportation Plan, RTP, and our Federal Transportation Improvement Program, the FTIP. We have recently adopted both of these documents. The 2022 RTP is a planning document that looks at the whole transportation system between now and 2046, lays out policies, programs, and potential future projects. The FTIP is a 4-year funding document that has projects that have received grant funds and that are going to move forward in the next 4 years. So one of the big jobs of MCAG is to ensure that these documents are in line, that they match what our agencies want to do, that we're able to fund these projects, and probably most importantly, at least on paper, that all of these projects are meeting our air quality requirements. So what we're doing now is we're starting our first amendments to these documents. And what you'll see in the attachment. So this month it's an update. I'm letting you know that we're working on these behind the scenes. We've worked with all of your cities. There are some projects that we need to amend, clean up, and add, and those are in draft form in this agenda item. Over the next couple of months, we'll be working pretty furiously actually to process the amendment. We're going to be changing some limits on the Highway 59 widening in our transportation model, and we're going to be adding in some rail projects in our model. We're doing that now. We are running our air quality emissions model. We're hitting some snags. You guys may or may not be surprised to know that every time the EPA adopts like a new model or new standards, they're more difficult than they were before. And we actually had a new model adopted in November last month. So we're working through the new EPA model and running all of these projects. So I'm hoping within the next month or so, I'm not sure if it'll be out before this next board meeting, but maybe January, February, we'll have our drafts for these amendments out to you. We'll have an addendum EIR, we'll have new air quality information and project changes. So I just wanted to keep you apprised of it. An RTP update they're not super common, and it's kind of a big deal, and we'll be working over it for the next few months to help out our cities and make sure that they can get through their project processes. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you guys might have.
Any questions for Elizabeth? Okay. Director Silvera.
Elizabeth, have you figured out a way that we can adopt our own EPA models and not use theirs? That would be helpful.
That would be so helpful. Honestly, actually, California is always the rogue state. Their model is called MCAG, and the rest of the country uses mobile. But I'm not sure if that's a benefit or disbenefit to us, actually, that we have our own special
I'm guessing
model.
if it's coming from the state of California, it's not a benefit to us.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, anyone else? Okay, this is just an information item only. Mary Michael, anything on our... Okay, nothing on our TikTok page? Okay, anything from the public? Okay, seeing none. Again, information only. So we thank you for your work and thank you for your presentation, Elizabeth. Emily takes us to 12B, which is the all-important topic of the JPA renewal process.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. As you all may remember, the last time this board discussed this item was in October at the meeting at the landfill. At that time, you directed me to meet with all legal counsels for the cities and the county regarding the JPA agreement. We have met twice so far. We have another meeting scheduled for Monday, and we have reached a resolution on virtually every issue. We do have one sticking point, but I'm hopeful that we can work that out on Monday. If anyone has any questions, happy to take any.
Okay, thank you, Emily. Any questions? Questions, comments? Okay, seeing none. Again, just an informational update only, and nothing from the public.
No.
Nope. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Emily. I would log off very quick before somebody jumps on.
I know, I see Scott making faces over there.
I know. I'm gonna. This guy, he's itching. His trigger finger's getting happy with it.
All right, thank you all.
Thank you. All right, action item item 13, which is action items for the Transit Joint Powers Authority. Christine.
Good afternoon, directors. Welcome all you new directors. I'm Christine Chavez. I'm the transit manager, and the item before you is seeking your approval. So just by way of background, TJPA has received 2 grants, which have made it possible to purchase zero-emission buses, kind of as a test pilot for venturing into zero emission. And each of the purchases are going to be complemented with a level 2 150 kilowatt charger made by ABB with dual dispensers, meaning we can charge 2 buses at one time. And so concurrent to the implementation of our first zero-emission buses, we're working on an innovative clean transit regulation compliance plan, which is essentially going to give us the footprint and path forward for zero emission. And so to this item, we really evaluated the approach to our first implementation of zero emission, and among many of the complications of the process of electrifying the fleet, we've moved forward with the request for qualifications for transit engineering services. We do not, as MCAG staff, have in-house engineering staff, and so we did have to contract that out. And so this is a qualifications-based selection process, and we did receive 3 bids, and cost was not a factor in the consideration of these bids. And so the evaluation committee consists of 2 transit staff and 1 of the municipal engineers. And so we were able to negotiate the price down, and we're confident that this has not cut the scope by underscoping the work, and we're confident that this can deliver the project that we need to get out to bid to get the infrastructure into the ground and have our buses charged. So the action before you is authorizing the executive director to enter into a contract for engineering services for bus fleet electrification infrastructure in the amount of $165,681.42 with Stantec Consulting Services.
Okay, questions for Christine? Seeing none, comments from the public? Oh.
I have a question.
Okay.
Who was your negotiator because the proposed price was $288,000 and we got it in for $165,000. Whoever it is, it did a fantastic job. So thank you.
Be the next Priceline negotiator, replace William Shatner or something. Director Hogue, did you have a comment too?
I didn't.
Okay. Oh,
I'm good.
you sure?
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Chair, if there are no more further comments, I'll make a motion to authorize the executive director to enter into the contract.
Okay, motion from
Second.
Director Silvera, Director Yanez with the second. Just checking to anybody from the public wish to be heard on this? Okay, thank you. All right, any opposition? Okay, seeing none, motion passes unanimously, takes us through items 14 and 15, on to 16. And Kyle, this is, I think, your item. This is information only, I believe, and our landfill tip fee assessment.
Good afternoon. Kyle Loretto, Diversions Program Manager for the RWA. Welcome to our new members. This is not about SB 1383. This is about our tipping fee. This is informational. About 2 years ago, you directed the RWA to look into doing a tip fee study out at the landfill. The rates at the landfill have not been raised in over a decade. So we put an RFP and we contracted with HF&H Consulting, who's been doing a study for us. They've been out touring our facility, looking at our capital projects that we have planned, and have developed a framework to put together a tip fee for us. The reason we're here today is just to let you know that is just about ready. It is contingent on SB 1383 and our organics facility projects that we will be bringing to you early next year. We wanted to bring this to you as an informational because we know budgets will be coming up. You'll be looking at your budgets, your haulers will be looking at their budgets, and we do expect that there will be a rate increase. It will not be, we can say it's not going to be more than 10, 20% at the very most, but I'm expecting it closer to the 10 to 15 range. But for your budgets, as you're looking into those, we do want you to be aware of that there will be a rate increase, and to consider those when you're doing those budgets. So.
All right, thank you, Kyle.
Anyone have any questions?
Questions? See none. Comments from the public? All right. Go ahead, Lynn.
Yeah, so who approved that rate increase?
There's no rate increase yet.
So the word would be may.
We may have, correct. There may be a rate increase of 10 to 20. We will bring a structure to you of what the study has feels for us to continue operating, and then of course you'll make that decision of what and how that rate would be in effect.
Anyone else? All right, thank you, Kyle. We'll to be determined later. All right, takes us to item 17, which is Stacy's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have to say, I think this is our longest December board meeting we've ever had, but maybe one of the shortest board meetings we've ever had. So I don't know how that works necessarily, but I also want to welcome our new board members. I had a chance to chat with you, obviously leading into this meeting and this afternoon, but to directors Nelson, Yanez, and Moran, I really look forward to working with you. And as you get to know, this is essentially, with the exception of Anna and Lori, this is all MCAG, TJPA, RWA staff, not all of them, but everyone else in the room is here. And we look forward to getting the opportunity to get to know each of you better. I also want to thank Chair Serrato, Director Silvera, Nagy, Nelson, city managers, Waterman, Nicholas, Jones, for Jose, who I think left, for attending our Transit Joint Powers Authority ribbon cutting, for our new admin building, for our longstanding board members. You know that there's a long history with that project. It started it's almost 7 years ago at this point when MCAG purchased the building, and it was just a really exciting day to be able to see the project open. And if you didn't get a chance to stop by and do a tour, anytime, stop by. We won't be open to the public until we get fully moved over right after the new year, but the doors are always open. So we look forward to welcoming you there. I have news that is both happy and sad. I am pleased to share that we have hired a new RWA director, which is the happy part. The sad part, of course, is that we are going to once again say goodbye to Marty Yerrick, who has served as our interim. For our new board members, as a way of background, Marty, after 30 years, well, you just earned your second half as the interim. So almost 30 years of service with RWA. Marty retired in January, and then as deputy. And then when our previous RWA director left his position, Marty came back from Tennessee and has served as our interim for the last, he reminds me, 5 months. So he'll be on with us for a couple more weeks as we get our new director. His name is James Moore. He has a pretty extensive experience in the industry, also with the Solid Waste Association of North America. He's eager to join us. He's from the Ripon area, I think, currently. So you'll see a new face at the January board meeting. But I do want to thank Marty. The last 5 months were only possible because, I think I was going on vacation when he drove his trailer into Merced, and I didn't talk to him for about 2 weeks, and so he just came and started working, and he's like, I guess Stacy's okay with me doing what I just let him go at it. So thank you, Marty. Lifesaver for sure. RWA has been so thankful, so grateful, and I've been so lucky to have you kind of right the ship and get things going. So thank you very much. And then the other bit of news is that I would like to also share, in the same vein of sadness, that today is Joy's last board meeting. So I know many of you have known Joy longer than I have. She's been with the agency for 15 years. And as you know, is the rock and the brains and the glue and all of the things at MCAG. So she is retiring, and we have kind of had various farewell moments with Joy, and we got together and were able to celebrate her retirement, but it wouldn't be fitting to send her off without recognizing her here, as she sort of served as the board clerk. I want to say from the beginning, I know Robin was in almost 15 years, if not all of 15 years. So I want to I know you all will probably join me in wishing her well in her retirement. That's why so many of our team are here today to just celebrate her last meeting. And I have a little something. And then if I could ask after the board conclusion, if you could stay, we'd love to take a picture with Joy as a parting moment of her time here. And I'm like Houdini with something under the... Am I supposed to take it out of the bag? Okay. All right, Joy. We didn't get flowers because we have worked with Joy long enough to know that I think she's allergic to every single flower on the planet. So we went with a plant, and then it will stay alive and stay with you, and you can remember us every day. And then when you miss a smoke, you can come. Thank you, Joy.
Sounds like a bad retirement. Great, Joy.
Joy, you want to give a speech? We need to hear from you.
Yeah, come on.
I just want to say thank you for this opportunity. Thank you for all the years that I've been able to see our hardworking electeds, in the real nitty gritty of it all. And your hard work, your dedication, and your... to see it from this perspective, I know how hardworking our elected officials are. Some people may say, well, they may not, or we don't know exactly what they do. Well, I do, and they work very hard for us, and I'm very proud to have been a part of it. Mm-hmm. So thank you.
Thank you, Joy.
All right, and then the last, I'll just say a blanket thank you. I know that we're coming out of the pandemic years, I hope, but as most of you all, I'm sure, can relate with your staff, our team has had a challenging year with kind of adjusting to the back in the office and the pandemic changes and keeping everything running. And I just don't say it enough. I just want to say thank you to all of you in the room for being patient and hardworking, and all of our staff that's listening that wasn't able to be here. So I know this board appreciates the work you do, and as do I. So with that, Merry Christmas to everybody. Happy New Year. Happy holidays.
Thank you, Stacy. Takes us to the director
bills.
reports.
There you Go Bills. He started it.
Starting on my left, Director Yanez, anything from you?
Yes. So first things first, Joy. It was an amazing 2 hours and 15 minutes to work with. No, she was wonderful. I came in early, and she was absolutely wonderful. So congratulations and best wishes on your retirement. I wanna thank my colleagues up here. I really look forward to working with you, and I just want to emphasize that with you and alongside you. And so I have been fortunate in my other career that I've actually worked in every single one of your jurisdictions in my law enforcement time, and so I've been fortunate that I'm pretty comfortable to say I know your cities quite well and the pockets of the county. So one little announcement from us is we over in Los Banos, we just recently appointed our first ever female interim city manager, Stacy Souza Elms, and so I'm really happy to she's going to start on the 29th to working with Stacy. So anything you need from us, please reach out. So thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Pat, anything on behalf of the city of Castine?
Yes, sir. Just a few things. I attended the Transit Center grand opening as well as you did, and other folks too, and it was great job. I mean, it's something to be proud of. And as the mayor said, it helps Merced's downtown and helps us, the county as a whole. So I think it's going to be a good thing for us. Joy, I'm going to miss your emails asking me if I'm going to be here.
Continue to send those.
I'll continue to answer them. No, thank you. We had a little issue with my email for a while there, and you're having to send me all kind of tests, and then I got 50 emails at once asking if I was going to be there. But it all worked out, and I want to thank you for your tenure here. As Stacy said, I concur with everything she said and wish you all the best in your future. Thank you. I would like to introduce our new city manager, Anna Nicholas. Stand up. Will the real Anna Nicholas please stand up? And I'd like to welcome our new members. Jumped right in. Thank you, gentlemen. You're already doing a great job. They are. Hey. And Merry Christmas to everyone, or Happy Holidays, whichever you celebrate, and we'll see you next year.
Yeah, thank you, Pat. Scotty?
Thank you. Yeah, it's the team that did the building downtown, the TJPA new admin building. Got to go take a tour of it. It's a nice, clean building. It's very functional, very well thought out. As Stacy highlighted during our tour, seeing how they're facing the street, and that's the only part of their building that has windows. They went with skylights in there. I think that's going to help save on energy costs and really brightens up the facility. So a nice new facility, and the TJPA folks are very well deserving of that. I wanted to mention that I did try to convince Marty while I was at that just to stick around a little bit longer, but he said he was out. So, but Marty, thank you for your renewed service, and wish you the best of luck in your retirement. Enjoy Tennessee. Joy, I will tell you, one of the things, that voice when I call MCAG, Joy was always on the other end of the line. She's the first point of contact. So I will miss the good work that you do, and want to congratulate you on your years of service, and wish you all the best in your retirement. And you can come back and visit us anytime. I think that is what I have, and I just want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Thank you.
Miss April?
Okay. First, I'd like to welcome all the new directors. You're in for a wild ride, I think. So, little did I know what I was getting into when I got onto this board. Marty, good luck in Tennessee. I hope your house missed all the tornadoes the other day, and it did? Okay, good, because they should probably be done by now, so you'll be safe. Joy, it's been a real joy working with you for the last, how many years have I been on this? 6 years? 6 years? 6 years. So I wish you all the happiness, and you don't have to go to any more meetings, and isn't that going to be so much fun? Yeah, a little bit. I do want to thank MCAG for hosting our ribbon cutting that we had. Was that last week?
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago. Oh my goodness.
That turned out really nice, and thank you all for coming and having lunch at the Coffee Saloon. I appreciate that, all the support. We also received funding for a brand new library, so thank you, Scotty, for working on that project. And Senator Caballero came and gave us a check, and that is really exciting. We are also having a toy drive on it's Sunday, this Sunday, so we're going to be giving out toys to people who are in need. So with that, I'm very pleased that we're all working together, and I usually give out a card, but I didn't realize that this is the last time we're meeting before the holidays, because it kind of snuck up on me. So happy holidays, and I wish everybody a restful vacation. And with that, thank you.
Thank you, April. Lloyd?
Sorry.
April didn't want to hear me speak. Welcome to the new board members. I'll remind April that the ones that caused the havoc are not here and have been replaced, so it might be good going forward. Marty, thank you. I've known you a long time and appreciated you coming back and taking care of us interim. And you know, it's when you have a forward or a public-facing, you know, entity, you know, that's the continuity is real important. So thank you for that, and then Joy, it's going to be going to miss you, you know, and you know, you've done a wonderful job and you've been steady, and you know, there's been transition and you've been steady, and so I'm thankful for that, and I hope you and Bob have a good time and doing whatever you plan to do next, and thanks again. And then would like to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. I think this past year's been good for us, and look forward to working with you on the next one.
Thank you, Lloyd.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, I just want to also welcome the new members, but especially Mike Nelson. You know, I always tell my colleagues here that I'm the senior, so I was here when Mike Nelson was stepping down, and now he's back, so welcome back. Yeah, I think that was 2000. Well, I've been here since 2010, so you know, as when I was mayor, and now, you know, back. So welcome back. Also, I want to thank you, Joy, for all your time. You know, you're always with joy and a smile. So thank you very much for all your time and then all your support and answering all our questions too out there at the office and here too. So thank you for all you've done for us. Appreciate it, and the best of in the future. Also, thank you, Marty, for coming back and helping us here. So appreciate that as well, and best of luck too in Tennessee. I've gone to Tennessee, and it's a beautiful state. So yeah, good decision. So also, I want to thank the staff. That's always great. I appreciate you, and and up here too as well. Hopefully, I know we have a lot of new staff, and we're doing well. And Nav, he's still there. So hey, appreciate all of you as well. So thank you. I want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas. I know that the small cities have a little bit extra funds now to enjoy Christmas, right? So congratulations to everybody, and a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. Thank you.
Drive through Gustine to celebrate on those newly repaved roads.
Merry Christmas.
Where's that? Or when,
Okay. Well, I just want to say congratulations to the newly elected and re-elected directors here. I'm really happy to be here and looking forward to working with all of you. Congratulations to Gustine and Los Palos for that teamwork effort. And congratulations on your retirement, Joy. Like he said, enjoy the 2 hours here. So, and just Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year to everyone. Thank you.
One of the good things about going towards the end is you can just say ditto and cover quite a bit of ground already. But I want to say congratulations and best of luck to Joy, a fellow Atwater resident and one of my supporters. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. After I did serve here for 8 years on this board representing District 3 of Merced County, and after a 10-year hiatus, I'm back. And you're right, April. I knew what I was getting into, but yeah, you're right about what you said.
Okay. Yeah, I would just echo what everybody else says. Welcome to the new members. Marty, thank you for coming back and doing or pitching in, doing a dirty job and getting us through some tough times. So we thank you for that. Enjoy. Been an honor as well. Been a pleasure, and we'll definitely miss you. And thank you for everything you've done. Just in so many ways, being the heart of this body and making everything go. So I think with that, we are adjourned. Oh, Pat, more.
Yeah, just one other thing, and that's the city-county dinner is in Gustine next month, so inviting you all there. Come on over.
The 26th, correct?
I believe so.
Okay. 26th, you get the point in time count and that, so it's a
And if we get
action
folks
packed.
to come, we're going to snap a quick picture right up front.
Okay. We're adjourned, but Stacy's requesting we take a photo with Joy up front, so I think that'd be an honor.
Meeting adjourned.
Meeting's adjourned.